Well, good morning. We have been talking for the last few weeks about the church, how many of us are experiences with the church have left a dissatisfied taste in our mouth. In fact, a lot of us grew up in environments where what we were taught were not true, but yet they're still a part of our life, and we need to deconstruct that. We need to figure out what the truth really is and begin to embrace the truth over what we've been taught, what's been our normal all our life. And one of the foundational things is you're not here because you chose to come here this morning. Nobody would choose to come to church. It's a lot of jacked up people, a lot of people that really don't know what's going on in their life, and they're just struggling. But this is Jesus' idea. This is His purpose. This is where He's called us to be. This is what He has called us to do, and it's not some man-made thing. And if it is, then we need to get rid of that man and get it back to where it really needs to be, because this is His idea. When it comes to church, everybody's welcome. You know, one of the things we'll get to it in a minute, but one of the comments in that little video clip is there are a lot of people that are undervalued for a lot of various reasons, and most of them are just overlooked. And I don't want you to talk to them. I don't want you to shake their hand. I don't want you to introduce yourself. Just look to your left and to your right and behind you, in front of you, and look at the people around you and realize that everybody in here has value regardless of where they're at on the journey. That's the purpose. Yeah, even Chris Jackson has value. And everybody that has value, they shouldn't have to jump through a hoop to be a part of what God has designed, what Jesus has designed. There shouldn't be hoops that they have to. They should just be able to walk in here on their journey and be welcomed here, period. No hoops, no nothing. That's what we talked about last week. Now, I'm going to address an elephant in the room that doesn't need to be in the room, because you need to understand this series was developed back before the beginning of the year. We actually, Pastor Steve, Pastor April, Pastor Alex, and myself, we meet on a regular basis. We meet at the end of the year to talk about the series of the coming year. And what we do is we look out over the people that God has placed in our care, and we try to figure out where you're at and what will help you on your journey, and we begin to build series based on that. And so this series, we know that a lot of you have grown up in church in this place, and we believe it's a very healthy place, but we also know that a lot of people come here from unhealthy places, and we want to address the unhealthiness. And so we started this idea back before the first of the year, and what I'm going to talk about today has nothing to do with anything that's happened yesterday. I want to get that very clear. What I'm going to talk about today has nothing to do with what happened yesterday, but we're still going to talk about it. Politics has no place in the church. Now, I'm not talking about the civil politics. That's not what I'm talking about. You have politics in your work environment, right? How many know what a brown noser is and know who they are? Don't point them out. Don't nudge them. It's just the people that are power hungry that will do anything to work the corporate ladder, to get into a better position, to have whatever they want. And that's what we're talking about. That has no place in the church, and yet is found all throughout the church. And here's what I want to describe as politics. The drive for power over people for personal gain. The drive for power over people for personal gain. That has no place in the church. It has no place in our world, but it definitely has no place in our church. And yet we find that so many times throughout the church world. Now, to get to Moneyball, how many of you have seen the movie Moneyball? If you haven't, you really need to watch it. It's a fascinating movie. It's actually based on a true event. Billy Bean and a guy named Paul DePasta. Anyway, you'll figure it out. He's called Peter Brand for some reason in the movie. That's not who it was. This guy named Paul. They had no money in Oakland, and so they came up with a way to develop a different way of looking at things. Baseball is very political. If you watch the clip, well, he's got a baseball body. What the heck is that? Is he round with stitches? What's a baseball body? Well, if he's got an ugly girlfriend, he's got no confidence. I mean, this was all reality for baseball, and how they went out and they got players. They paid for subjective things. And when you have no money, you have to come up with a better way, right? And so they devised a way to use actual factual data. How do you win a game? Well, you got to get more runs than the other team. How do you get more runs? You got to get more people on base. The more people you get on base, the better chances you get in more runs. The more runs you make, the better chances you win in more games. The more games you win, the better chance you get in the postseason. It's just factual data. And so they came up with a way, they devised a way to do this, which cut out the majority of the politics in baseball. And I know there's still some there. We're evil people. We're always going to have politics, but we want to get it to a minimum as much as possible. And so no matter what sport you watch today, they use these formulas. It's an amazing thing. They use these very formulas to find players for all kinds of sports today. It's just factual data. It takes the politics out of it. I don't care if you have an ugly girlfriend, you got a baseball body or a volleyball body. Can you get on base? Right? And when it comes down to the church, we need to use factual data and get politics out of it. Because like what I said was, everybody in here has value. Nobody should be overlooked. When you meet somebody on the road, it doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter what they smell like. It doesn't matter what their career is. It doesn't matter where they're from. They are valuable people in God's eyes. Why? Because He created them. And they are potential people that can make a difference in this world. And so that's how we need to look at it. We just need to get the politics out of it. But we do know that we live in an environment where power struggles are real. And people want personal gain. And many of them don't care who they step on to get to it. And it's just a sad thing, but it shouldn't be a part of the church. Structure is necessary to fulfill the mission of God, but when structure gets in the way, you end up with church politics, people seeking power for self-gain. And so I just want to take us back to the beginning, and it's not even in the New Testament. It takes us back to the very beginning of when structure was instituted, and it's a very interesting story, and if you really break it down, you start seeing how it really applies, not just to church, but to life as a whole, if you really get down to it. And so we find this in Exodus chapter 18. I'm just going to say this once. There's a bunch of scriptures up there. They're for your benefit. We are going to read a couple of them, but I don't have a time to cover all of them. It's just, they said I said that too many times in the first service, so I'm going to tell you that one time. We're not going to read all these. They're for you to go home and study and check me out. Make sure that what I'm saying is true. Moses has been appointed by God to lead the children of Israel out of bondage in Egypt, and he gets them out of Egypt, and they get out in the desert. And his father-in-law Jethro's there, and he's watching Moses day after day after day just meet with the people. Just meet with the people and meet with the people and meet with the people and meet with the people. And finally, Jethro stands up and goes, "You're an idiot. You're just wasting a bunch of time." And watch what he says in Exodus chapter 18, starting in verse 17. Moses' father-in-law replied to him and said, What you are doing is not good. You and these people who come to you only wear yourselves out. Now, mamas, I'm going to just use you guys for a minute. How many of you got more than one baby? Even if you just got one. What do you hear all day long? Mama, 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 mama. What happens when dad comes home? Take your kids. Right? Why? Because they're wearing you out. But guess who's also wore out? The kids. Where there is no structure, you just wear people out. And don't get me wrong, we love our kids, but they wear us out. And this is what his father-in-law is telling him. What you're doing only wears out you and the people. You cannot do this by yourself. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. Listen to me now, and I will give you some advice. And may God be with you. Because if you don't listen to this advice, you're going to need God with you. They're going to wear you out. You must be the people's representative before God and bring their disputes to Him. Teach them His decrees and His instructions and show them the way they are to live and how they are to behave. In other words, your job is not to listen to all the people all day long. Your job is to teach the people. Mamas, your job is to teach your kids. Not listen to them say, mama, 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 mama 900 times because they're just going to wear you out and you're going to wear them out. You have to teach. There's a hierarchy. There's a structure that's got to be in place. And so what he's telling Moses is your job is to teach. Your job is to be the go-between. And then he says this, but select capable men from among the people. How do you select capable men? You're observant. How many of you read body language? Anybody with me? You begin. I was in the military. I learned to read body language. I want to know when somebody was lying to me. I want to know when somebody was telling me the truth. I want to know when they were wasting my time. I learned to read body language and facial expressions. There's a whole lot you can say without ever saying a word. You with me? How do you find capable people? You just look out amongst the crowds and figure out who's already doing it. And when they're already doing it, you just recognize them. And that's what he's saying. There's people out there who are already willing to do all these things. You just got to figure them out. You just got to find them out. You just got to recognize them. Select capable people from among the people. Here's 3 qualifications that he says. They need to be God-fearing people. They need to be trustworthy people. And they need to hate dishonest gain. They need to hate injustice. Aren't those 3 great qualities? Man, shouldn't we all have those things? Shouldn't that all be part of our life? That we all fear God? I mean, we're here this morning. We say we're followers of Jesus. We should have a reverent fear of God. We say we have a relationship with Him. Shouldn't we fear Him? Should we be trustworthy? I mean, He's trustworthy to us. Shouldn't we be trustworthy with Him? And then shouldn't we just hate injustice? Doesn't matter where it's at. We should just hate injustice. And appoint them as officials over thousands and hundreds and 50s and 10s. Jesus will talk about this. There are people with talents. Some people have the ability of 10 talents. Some people have the ability of 5 talents. Some people have the ability of 2 talents. We all have talents, but it's not all equal. He gives us the abilities to do certain things, and we all need to do what He's called us to do based on the abilities that He's given us. And there are some people in this room that can lead large corporations. They're going to be fantastic. I don't want to do that. I hate administration. I just want to hang with people. I don't want to. You follow me? There's some of you that love that kind of stuff. Good on you. You'll lead thousands. There's some of us who's just going to lead hundreds. There's some of us just going to lead 50s. There's some of us just going to lead 10s. There's a lot of us just struggle to lead ourselves. You with me? But we can lead. He says, find them and put them in charge. Let them do these things. And watch what he says. Have them serve as judges for the people at all times. But have them bring the difficult cases to you. The ones that they can't solve, they'll bring them to you. Other ones they'll just do on their own. That will make your load lighter because they will share it with you. How many of mamas love it when your husband comes home, daddy comes home, and he just jumps right in and shares the load with you? How many of you husbands love it when your bride, when the mother of your children just come out and share the load with you? It makes life so much more enjoyable, doesn't it? When we all share the load. Nobody's wore out, or we're all wore out. Either way. He says, if you do this, and God commands you to, you will be able to stand the strain. How many of you have ever felt the strain of leadership? The strain of trying to change something, the strain of taking a people to a place where they don't want to go. When you do it the way God designed it to do it, you can stand in the face of adversity, is what he's saying. You can stand. You'll have the strength. And all of these people will go home satisfied. Wouldn't that be nice? We're all going to have vanilla ice cream today, and you'll all be happy. Won't work that way, will it? Because some of us like chocolate, some of us like strawberry, some of us want caramel on it, some of us want chocolate on it, and all the kids want sprinkles, right? But when we get this right, the workload is spread among the balanced leadership, and everybody's life is improved. Unfortunately, so many places today, churches today, don't do this. They don't have a balanced approach. They have the structure that's in the Bible, but they don't have a balanced approach to that structure. How many of you ever been a part of a church where the pastor is the end-all, be-all? What he says goes. Yeah, me too. What he says goes. No matter whether he's right, wrong, or indifferent, it doesn't matter. You're going to do what he says at all times, no matter what. And he is in charge. Leave. Seriously, just leave. Get away. That's not biblical. The pendulum swings. You know, it's all or nothing with the pastor. And then you have these pendulum swings. How many have been a part of a church where the boards rule everything? Whether it's the deacon board or the elder board or the incorporation board. You have this board of people that think they're in charge of everything, and you have to go through. You can't do anything without getting how many live in a home association? Leave. I mean, it's the same thing, is it not? You can't do anything. This is my house, but you can't do that there. But that should not be a part of the church. How many of you have ever been a part of a church that has committees? The flower committee, the kitchen committee, the grounds committee, the building committee. You can't do anything without getting somebody on the committee to approve your process. How is that helpful on any of these things? What I want you to know is this is not what God designed. He just told Moses, what you're doing is what an idiot would do. Knock it off. You're just wearing yourself out and you're wearing the people out. And so we shouldn't go to these extremes where just the pastor or just the board or just a committee. There's a way to do this. Here's some things I wrote down when I thought about this. Politics over people will always lead to power struggles. Anytime you have politics over people, you'll always lead to power struggles. And where power is prevalent and humility is absent, the people will suffer. Jesus would look at the Pharisees over and over and over and say, why are you fleecing the flock? You have made this all about you. Why are you not doing what my Father has called you to do? Anytime you put people over politics, the church will always prosper. Where serving and humility are prevalent, people will thrive. I told somebody in the first service, and I've said it before, if Steve fires me, I will still attend here. Why? Because I think the model that's here is as close to what God has called us to do as we can get. There are no power struggles. I don't want Steve's job. He doesn't want my job. He loves to preach and to teach, and he can do this week in, week out. I don't want to wear a collar. Now I've had to do it 2 weeks in a row. I just love working with people. Why? Because that's what God has called me to do. That's my gifting. That's my talents. That's where I thrive. And when we put this right, when we put people first and put politics aside, people will thrive. Again, I don't have time to read all this, but you can look in the early Gospels where Jesus called his 12, and you can see this structure that was given to Moses. Jesus models this. He goes out and he grabs 12 people, and of those 12, he promotes 3 to his inner circle, if you will, Peter, James, and John. And as much time as he spends with the 12, he spends a whole lot more time with the 3. And I think Jesus looked at the 3 and said, there are talents in these 3 that the other 9 don't have. It's not that their talents aren't necessary, but the talents of these 3 will propel the church to a place that I need it to be. You follow me? Then you look into the first part of Acts, and you see this come true. You see everywhere they go in the first 5 chapters, you see Peter and John rise to the surface. They're the ones, Peter specifically, is preaching and teaching and saying, repent, for the kingdom of God is at hand. He's the one that's pushing. He's the one that's saying, follow Jesus, let him do everything else. And you see John in the background. We're really not sure what he's doing, but I'll bring you up on that in a minute. And then you get into Acts chapter 6. Anytime something grows rapidly, what is always going to take place? We outgrow our leadership. We outgrow our servitude. We outgrow the things, and they were adding thousands and hundreds of people every single day. And so they outgrew really quick the leadership that they had in place. But they were already good leaders, and Peter knew what to do. And he said, hey, let's pick out 6 men or 6 people among you to put them over the tables, and we will call them deacons. No, he said they're servants. Every church doesn't need deacons. What every church needs are servants. We don't have deacons here. We have a whole lot of servants here. Here's another thing. You don't need 12. Well, one of them is going to stab you in the back. Think about it. Jesus said that. Or he modeled that. What you need is the number that's necessary for your congregation. That's it. And it's not a title. It is literally an action. And what he said is go out and find men who are already doing these things. And I'll just add this in here. I think what they looked for were men who feared God, men who were trustworthy, and men who hated injustice. Now, they say it different ways, but I think they go all the way back to Moses, and that's the things that they're looking for in these men. And they just discover them. Oh, wow, Stephen's already doing this. Let's appoint him. This guy's already doing this. Let's appoint him. And they just find them, and they put them over that. And they start doing what God has called them to do, put people first. And guess what happens? The church grows. And then by the time we get to Acts chapter 15, we talked a little bit about it last week, but you find the Jerusalem Council. And I think is what has happened over time is Peter and John, and I'll jump ahead, Paul and Barnabas have realized their specialty is not administration. Their specialty is not structure. Their specialty is casting vision and loving on people. Because everywhere Peter went, John went. And what they called John? The disciple who Jesus loved. And John would refer to himself as the disciple who loved Jesus. And so for me, he was just, if you will, a priest. He just loved on people. He just loved. I would imagine if John walked in here, everybody in here would love him. He just loved on people. There was something about him that was attractive. Peter could come along and deliver the message, and it might be harsh, and John would come up behind him and help you clean up the wounds where you've been hurt and you realize that things are not going the way that they should. You've made some poor decisions. John would just come alongside you and say, hey, man, it's just part of your journey. Let's just figure this out. And I think Paul, he was like Peter. He was just out in the front, and Barnabas, the son of encouragement. We all need a Barnabas in our life, don't we? We all need a pastor in our life that will just come alongside and just encourage and just push and direct. And we just all need that in our life. Jesus brings it home in Luke chapter 22, 24 through 27, when he describes what a leader should look like. He says this, a dispute rose among the disciples as to which one was considered the greatest. Now, just grasp that for a second. They were learning and walking and following the greatest man that ever lived. And they're going to argue over which one of them was the greatest. And let me just help you. None of them. You all just a bunch of knuckleheads. I'm the greatest, but I'm gonna put up with you for a minute. So Jesus, being Jesus, he says, the kings of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who exercise authority over them, they call themselves benefactors. This is not political, but it's a good example. Don't our political leaders today say they're our saviors? This is what I can do for you. 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 Do they ever do that for you? Any of them? No. They lord it over us. They say there's something great, but they never do what they say. And Jesus says that's what the civil servants do. That's what the Gentiles do. That's what the civil leadership does. You shouldn't be a part of that. Instead, the greatest among you should be the youngest or the innocent. How many have ever had a child in their innocence and they just think everybody's good? They just think everybody's beneficial. They just think everybody is going to help them. That's what he's saying. You need to have the innocence of a child in you when you look at people, when you lead. When you look at somebody, do you just automatically think they're the enemy? Or do you really look at them and say, they're God's creation? They're a potential ally. There's somebody that needs to know Jesus. There's somebody that should be a part of our church. There's somebody that should know the loving relationship with Jesus Christ that they can enjoy today, tomorrow, for all eternity. How do you look at people? And what he says, as a leader, you should be the innocence of a child, and that's how you should look out. He goes on, and the one who rules like the one who serves. For who is greater, the one who is at the table or the one who serves the table? Well, the obvious answer is the one who's at the table is the greatest in the world of men, in the minds of men. And then Jesus brings it home. He says, but I among you am the one who serves. Now, if the greatest man in all the world is the one who serves, how much more should we be willing to imitate that? You see, we have leadership all wrong. We have this power struggle all wrong. As a leader, we need to serve. And as servants, we need to do it like Jesus did it. And that's the way the church should be. I'll just say this. Here's what happens when you do that. First time guests come into your presence, and they just simply say things like this: I just felt at home. The reception here was so great. I just felt like no matter what I had on my plate or what I had in my past, I just felt like this was a place I could belong. That's what happens every week at this place. First-time guests respond to a text that I send them and say, some way, shape, or form, I just felt at home here. When you get this right, no matter where you've been, no matter what you've been through, no matter what you're going through, you just know you're home. When we lead like Jesus. I don't have time. How many of you have been in churches that are cliques? You got to be on the right committee. You got to be on the right board. You got to be on the right whatever. It's just cliques. I am going to read this because I think it's important. In 1 Corinthians chapter 3, they addressed it this way. Some said, I follow Paul, I follow Apollos. Those are cliques. Cliques are the power struggle of the immature. See, a lot of times we'll quote that verse. Some follow Apollos, some follow Paul, but we don't read the verses before them. Here's what it says at the beginning of that. Paul writing to the Corinthian church, brothers and sisters, I could not address you as people who live by the Spirit, but as people who are still worldly, mere infants in Christ. I gave you milk, not solid food, for you're not ready for it indeed. And still to this day you are not ready. You are still worldly. For since there are jealousy and quarreling among you, are you not worldly? Are you not acting like mere humans? For when one says, I follow Paul, and another follow Apollos, are you not mere human beings? Are you not immature when you form cliques? If you ever go to a church that has cliques, leave. Leave, because you will not grow. That is not what God has called us to do. It is not a power struggle. It is not a place of importance for me to find this. You can also find in James where they address favoritism. If you've never read the book of James, James is a phenomenal book, especially if you're a new Christian. I love it. I've been a Christian for a long time. I've been a follower of Jesus for a long time. I still love James because it breaks it down to the most basic way to follow Jesus. But he addresses the way that they favored people. That should not be a part of the church. I'll end this here. If you've been a part of a church that has been unhealthy, that doesn't follow a model that promotes the people over the politics, that has been a place of favoritism. My brother was a part of a place of favoritism. At one point in his life, he was very independently wealthy. And he went into, I don't know how they figured it out, but he went into a place to worship and to follow God. And they immediately came up to him, just like it says in James, and gave him a prominent seat, and gave him a prominent place on a board, and gave him a prominent place. And he didn't know any of these people. And it was all because they found out he had money. Now, I love my brother. He had no business being on any of those things. The poor beggar on the street probably had a better position than he did in a lot of those places. Nothing against my brother. He just didn't have that kind of talent. And I'm not knocking him. It's just favoritism does not have a place in the church, or should not. If you've been a part of that, we get a lot of people that come to Essential. They'll come and they love what we do. They love where we go. They love the structure that we have. We have all kinds of structure that promotes the people, and they love that. But then they'll come along and they'll say something like this: if you would just add, and they'll bring their stupid politics from their past with them, and they don't even realize they're doing it. It's just a part of their life, right? It's just part of who they are. They'll bring up some political issue for power struggle. If you will just add this, it will make it so much better. And you know what we say? If that's what you want, go somewhere else, because we won't do that here. This is not a power struggle. And this place is more important than me. Like I said, if Steve fires me, so be it. I'll still be here next week as one of y'all, because I am one of y'all. I love what we do here. But if you've had this in your past, I just ask you to ask God, show you the political struggles of your past, that you might overcome them so that you can prosper. Let's pray this morning. Father, we love you and praise you. Thank you so much for your love for us, your patience with us. God, it says that you are long-suffering, and we don't really grasp all that, but when we begin to really search in our hearts, like David would say, search me, O God, and know my heart, and we do something like that, and you begin to reveal things in us that just aren't right, and politics in church is something that's just not right, and you reveal that to us. It really demonstrates your patience and your long-suffering for the long journey. And so, Father, this morning, I just say thank you for that you love me enough to not leave me where I am, but to always call me to a better place. So we pray this in your precious name this morning.